Hey guys, welcome back to another geometry video. Last week we ended our lessons on inequalities and we started slopes and lines. So this week we're going to continue slopes and lines, and before we get started we're just going to review what we ended on last week. So last week we talked about the slope, and a slope is basically a ratio that measures the slant of a line on the coordinate plane. And the variable that represents slope usually is the letter m, and the equation used to find slope is the change in vertical distance over the change in horizontal distance. And a lot of people refer to this as rise over run, if that helps you remember it. So we can take a look at an example. If we have 2 points over here in the bottom right corner, if we have points A and B, A at -1, -2, and B at 2, 7, we can connect these points to create a line. And this line will have a slope. And how do we find that slope? Well, we have to find the change in vertical distance and divide it by the change in horizontal distance. So from A to B, if we want to find the change in vertical distance, we'd have to look at the y coordinates of both points, because the y coordinates are the ones that represent vertical shifts and vertical positions on the coordinate plane. So A is at -2 for its y coordinate, and B is at 7. So the distance between these two is 9, and we can actually count up from A. We can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then the run, or the horizontal distance, the change in that, we can find out by looking at the x coordinates. So A is at -1 and B is at 2. So the change, or the distance between those 2 points horizontally, is 3. So 1, 2, 3. So we found out that the vertical distance, the change in vertical distance was 9, and the change in horizontal distance was 3. So for this particular case, slope, or m, is equal to 9 over 3, or just 3. So there are different types of slopes. Before that I can just show you guys, or write down the simple step-to-step procedure for what we just did. So basically just writing down the steps that we took to find out the slope of this particular line. So first, you need to identify 2 points on the line that you are trying to figure out its slope. And then next, find the vertical change. And find the horizontal change. Then write the ratio of the vertical change to the horizontal change. So basically divide vertical change by the horizontal change. and that's going to be the slope. There are different types of slopes. So a positive slope would be a line slanting upwards from left to right like this. So if m is greater than 0, then the line would look like this on the coordinate plane. So for example, we can say that this is a point 1, 2, and this is a point 3, 3. So the rise or the vertical change would be 1, and the horizontal change would be 2. So the slope would be 1 over 2, which is greater than 0, so the slope is positive. A negative slope is the opposite, so the line would actually go from top to bottom, left to right, so it's slanted downwards. If you have the points 2, 3 and 5, 1, we can get that the vertical change is -2 because it's going down, and the horizontal change is 3. And slope is the vertical change over the horizontal change, so it would be -2 over 3, and that's less than 0, so the slope is negative. You can also have a 0 slope and no slope at all. So a 0 slope is basically just a horizontal line. So if you see a horizontal line, it's a 0 slope, and we can kind of prove this by the equation, which is rise over run, the vertical change over the horizontal change. But in a horizontal line, there is no rise, there's no vertical change. So the numerator would be 0, and 0 in the numerator over any number equals 0. So the slope of a horizontal line is always 0. And no slope at all comes with a vertical line. And this is because if you look at the equation again, rise over run, here there is no horizontal change, so the denominator would be 0, and 0 cannot be in the denominator. It's not possible to divide anything by 0, so vertical lines have no slope. We can look at a problem, and it asks us to find the slope of the line that is determined by the points -2, 4, and 4, 2. So first what we need to do is actually plot the points. So point 1 is at -2, 4, so right here, we can name that point 1. And point 2 is at 4, 2 over here, and this is point 2. Next we can use the formula for slope, which is change in vertical distance over change in horizontal distance, and that's the same thing as delta y over delta x. Delta is, it kind of looks like a triangle, but it's a Greek symbol that means change. So when you see delta y over delta x, it means the change in y over the change in x, or the change in vertical distance over the change in horizontal distance. So using this formula, we find the change in vertical distance. So we look at the y coordinates. Point 2 has a y coordinate of 2, and point 1 has a y coordinate of 4. So we can subtract to find the distance, and for the horizontal change, we can subtract the x coordinates. So 4 minus negative 2, and this gives us negative 2 over 6, or negative 1 over 3. So negative 1 over 3 is our slope. Another problem we have asks us to draw the line whose slope is negative 3 over 2 through the point 1, 4. So first we're going to have to graph the point 1, 4. So right here we can call it A. So 1, 4. This is the point we're given, and it tells us the slope. Draw the line whose slope is negative 3 over 2. So since the slope is negative 3 over 2, we know that the change in y is negative 3, and the change in x is 2, because that's the formula for slope. So we can basically just count and draw points on this line. So from point A, we can go down 3, because delta y is negative 3, 1, 2, 3, and then go over 2, 1, 2, and that leads us to this point over here. We can call it B. And even from these 2 points, we can just draw the line. But just to make sure, we can do it one more time using the slope to graph another point. So go down 3 times. 1, 1, 2, 3, and then over twice. That gives us a point right here. So by using the slope and just one point, we're able to draw this line. Okay, we know how to find slope, but now we're going to try to find the equation of the line. So one thing we need to know before we get into this is that so say we have points A, B, and C lie on the same line if and only if the slope of AB is equal to the slope of BC. So what this means basically is that line segments are collinear if they have the same slope. So points are on the same line if they create the same slopes with each other. So we can do this by example. I think it'll be easier to learn with an example. So say we have 2 points. So let's say that we have point A at -3, -1, -3, -1, and we have point B at 6, 5. right over here. B6, comma 5. So we know that if we connect these, we've created a line, and that means any line segment on this line has the same slope. So if we say, so let P be any other point on the line AB. Then we know that the slope of AB equals the slope of BP, where P is any other point on the line. So this is putting into effect the text in blue here. ABC lie on the same line if and only if the slope of AB is equal to the slope of BC. So the slope of AB is equal to the slope of BP because they're on the same line. And from this, we can figure out the equation of this line. So the slope of AB, we can find that by subtracting y values and dividing it by the x values, so delta y over delta x, which we've done a couple times before in this lesson. So this slope is -6 over -9, or 2 over 3, right? So this is the slope of AB, AB. The slope of BP is a different story though, because we do not know what point P is, so we're going to use variables. So for BP, the slope of BP, we're going to use variables y and x to represent point P, which we do not know. And basically, since we know that this slope and this slope are equal, we can set them equal to each other. So 2 over 3 equals y minus 5 over x minus 5. And we can cross multiply, so we get that there should be a 6 over here. If we cross multiply, we get that 2x minus 12 is equal to 3y minus 15. And from here, all we have to do is solve for y. So we can bring 15 to the other side and divide by 3. And that gives us 2 over 3x plus 1 equals y. And that's the equation of the line. It might seem very complicated now, but as we do more problems, it'll seem a lot easier. It's just, you might get confused as to why these variables are here instead of actual numbers, but we were only given 2 points, and we needed to choose a point on the line, but we don't know the coordinates of the points, so we have to use variables, and then solve for y. So moving on, let's write down the steps of what I just did over here. I'll just write them so it's clear. Step 1 is to find the slope. of the line. Then let p, or any other variable, be any point on the line, and write a ratio that expresses the slope in terms of p and one of the given points. So what this step is saying is what we did over here with slope BP. We used a given point, which was B, 6, 5, and we used an unknown point, P, and we found the ratio, which was the slope. After that, we set them equal to each other. So the slope that we found in step 1 and the slope that we found in step 2, we set them equal to each other. And why do we do that? Well, it's this statement over here. ABC lie on the same line if and only if the slope of AB is equal to the slope of BC. So we know that all the points that we have, A, B, and P, are on the same line, so their slopes must be equal. And finally, solve for y. So those are the 4 basic steps to finding the equation of a line given 2 points. Oh, okay. And something else you need to know is that the constant term, so we got the equation, right? The constant term, which is in this case 1, is the y-intercept of the line. And what that means is that at 1, the line crosses the y-axis. And this, before the x, this value, 2/3, is the slope of the line. And the the x-intercept is where the line crosses the x-axis. And we can find, so how do we find y-intercepts and x-intercepts? Well, to find a y-intercept, you just have to set the x variable to 0. Set x to 0. And to find the x-intercept, you set y to 0. So, using this equation as an example again, the y-intercept is when x over here is 0. So we set x to 0, 2/3 times 0 is 0, and plus 1 is 1. So the y-intercept is 1. And if we set y to 0, so let's say y equals 0, this is how we find the x-intercept. So we would solve for x from here. -1, and then bring 2/3 to the other side, so you get the x-intercept is -3/2. And that is how you find both the x and y-intercepts. This is going to be the last problem for today, and it asks us to find the equation and the y and x-intercepts, given that the slope of a line through the point A is 2. So they give us the coordinates of the point A, and we can plot that right now. So they say that A is 3, 0, which is right over here. A is 3, 0. And the slope, so m, equals 2, which is given. So find the equation. How do we find the equation? We let point P be another point on the line. And if the slope is -2, the slope is -2. If the slope is -2, that means the ratio between P and A would be -2. So P, we don't know the coordinates of P, so just x comma y. So delta y over delta x, which is the formula for slope, equals, well, if P is x comma y, then the distance, the vertical distance, would be y minus the y value of A, point A, which is 0. So y minus 0 over the change in x, which is x minus 3. And we know that this ratio has to be equal to -2 because all line segments on the same line have the same slope. From here, we can simply cross multiply. So the denominator of -2 is actually 1. So once we cross multiply, we get that y minus 0 equals -2x plus 6. And y minus 0 is just y. So we don't even have to solve for 0 because it's already isolated. So the equation is right here, y equals -2x plus 6. What are the y and x intercepts? Well, how do we find those? To find the y-intercept, we set x to 0. So y equals -2 times 0 plus 6. So the y-intercept equals 6. And to find the x-intercept, we set y to 0. So 0 equals -2x plus 6. We bring the 6 to the other side, you get -6 equals -2 times x. Divide by -2 on both sides and you get 3 equals x. So your x-intercept is 3. What does this help us do? Well, now it helps us plot a line. So we didn't even need to solve for the x-intercept because it's already given here. Point A is where it crosses the x-axis, and the x-coordinate is 3. So we were correct. The y-intercept is 6. So we know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We know that another point on the line has to be here. From this information, we can just connect the dots to successfully draw a line. That's it for today, and we'll pick up from where we stopped next week. Thank you.